Well, I had a great pleasure today of interviewing AJ. He's actually a friend of mine, chiropractic doctor. I've known him for quite some time now. I think maybe 7 years.
7, 8 years.
7 years, something like that.
Going back. At least 2017. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, bro, today you kind of shocked me a little bit. I've always known you as a chiropractor. You did some social media stuff. We'll talk about social media. And now you're a book writer. And you want some salsa classes. Talk about leveling up, bro.
Try to get out there and just enjoy life and do some things that kind of make you feel uncomfortable. I think you don't stretch yourself unless you get into some level of doing things that you maybe didn't think you could do.
That's true, man. So tell me, man, what's been your inspiration lately? Because before when I met you were working at a clinic, then you opened up your own clinic. What's been the driving force? What's been the change?
I don't know. My driving force is, I think I've always been kind of a workaholic. I love what I do. So I think that's the first thing. And I think it's always the key in anything. Like if you love what you do, you're really not working, right?
True.
I know you're the same way. It's like you're out there, maybe you're doing some marketing, but it's not even work to you.
No, that's the fun part.
It's who you are. It's in your DNA. And I would say it's kind of in my DNA, to do things that are, maybe stretch me a little bit. I mean, I have a lot of passion when it comes to writing. I have passion when it comes to music. I love music.
Yeah.
And, it just kind of just cements who I am as a person.
You said music, and you mentioned early on some, was that reggaeton or what was it?
Yep. So I've already written one song in a reggaeton. It's called Primera Vez.
Okay.
And then I have a second one now that hopefully should be finished production in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
And that one is called Te Quiero. It kind of takes you through basically a Latina and a gringo kind of meet, and he can't say things right. So instead of saying Te Quiero, he says Te Quiero. So we kind of did a little bit of a spoof on that. So, but it should be. It's a song. It's written. I wrote it in Spanglish. So there's a lot of English. There's a lot of Spanish. I kind of got like an Afro Latino beat.
Okay, man. I all these things that I know about. Tell me about your background, because I mean, like myself, everybody thinks I'm white. It's cool. I mean, I look white. I mean, it works in my favor sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. So,
well, if you talk about my ethnic background, my mom is from, her family's Polish and Native American.
Okay.
My dad is mixed up as well. He's Italian and then kind of French Canadian. I always, because the last name Rubano, my legal name is Angelo Rubano. I don't think you can get more Italian than that.
True.
But to be honest with you, I mean, I grew up in a community that was ethnically diverse. I was the only white guy on an all-black basketball team. So because of that, I kind of grew up like listening to hip hop and Run DMC and all that stuff. And then I was also the only white guy on an all-Hispanic soccer team. So because of that, I started to learn how to speak Spanish early, and I took some Spanish classes. But since I've been in practice, that's been a goal of mine, is to become as fluent as possible in Spanish. And I'm getting there. Not there yet, but it's a process.
The fact that you wrote a reggaeton song and you're white, it's pretty impressive, bro. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty good.
Now, mind you, I don't sing it. I hired singers.
Oh, okay.
Because I like to sing in the shower, but I can write, and I can definitely. I actually write better in Spanish than I speak Spanish. Yeah, I mean, I speak it probably better than I understand it coming back, because it's my thought, so I know the words I'm saying. Sometimes on the translation coming back, that's where the disconnect happens. But again, I'm getting there. So.
Man, talking about the shower, bro. Like, the only time I know I can sing is when nobody's listening.
Yep.
Right? Because if not, it comes out bad. Think I can dance, but sure as hell can't sing. So, bro, tell me, I mean, like, and we'll talk about social media as well. You've been a chiropractic doctor for quite some time, and, your background has helped you with that, I would imagine.
Yeah, so I started practice. This is my 32nd year in practice.
Look at that, bro.
You did that in 93, yeah. So I graduated in 93. So technically, I really started practice in 94, even though I had my first license in Pennsylvania in 93 while I was still in school. So really 31 full years of practice. Now, that's really, my practice has changed a lot. When I first started, chiropractic was big with your major medical companies.
Sure.
And then then all the HMO came. And that really kind of, cut a lot of doctors at the knees. So I had to learn how to kind of reposition myself. And that kind of, led to kind of becoming a master marketer, so to speak.
Let's talk about marketing, because like as an attorney, I'm always have to be marketing and advertising. In fact, actually, I've scaled back a little bit because of the new laws with DeSantis and everything else. Now I'm litigating a lot more. So I reduced my regular advertising. But for me, I still do a lot of videos, a lot of content, a lot of educational content. For me, that works really well. What have you found that works well for you?
Well, I think in this day and age, I don't think people are looking for your typical advertisements. They're not necessarily looking for information. I think most people, if they see an ad, something that strikes them as an ad, they're turning, they're going, they're scrolling, they're
Ain't
flipping
that the
through.
truth?
For me, it's all about showing people who I am.
True.
I think if people can trust you, and number one, remember back in the day, they used to say, you need to get people to like you.
Yeah.
That was the big thing in marketing. It's like, you need to have people like you, which I think is important. But I found out that what's more important is letting people know that you like them. Because let me ask you this, if you know I like you, would you trust that I'm going to take good care of you?
Well, yeah, because you have the interest that I like that person.
Correct.
If it's all about me, this is only about me.
And as both, as lawyers and doctors, we have a fiduciary responsibility, meaning that, we can't do what's best for our pocketbooks. We have to do what's best for our clients or our patients. And so ultimately, that's what drives me, is making sure that, number one, my clients know that I like them. I want to see the best for them.
True.
I want them to get better. I want them to heal. And I'm going to pull out all the stops to help them heal and get better. And I think that's what I try to get across in my marketing, is showing them who I am as a person.
Yeah, I think that's a lot more authentic, honestly, because back in the days, it was a hard sales. We've gone through different eras. Before it was hard sell. If you don't do this, you'll lose your house. But just very hard tactics, and that's why people have this, fearful of like used car salesmen and things like that. Right now, it's about how can I help you, and then when you help people get enough what they want. Zig Ziglar, actually, I'm a huge fan of. Whoever remembers Zig Ziglar.
Yeah, I remember Zig.
Yeah, is you help people get what they want. You get what you want because you really are there for them, right?
You're a resource.
You're a resource.
And I find that, over time, my patients will call me to ask me about stuff outside of medical, like, what do you recommend for this, for XYZ? So, I think that shows, the level of respect and trust that there is. And I think that's probably the most important thing nowadays, is really just developing that trust and showing them that you're there for them. Because so many people are so skeptical. There's so many scammers out there,
Yes.
and it's bad. It sucks for those of us, I think, that do it right,
Of course.
because people are always still kind of looking at you side-eyed. Is this guy really on my side? Is he really doing what's best for me, or do I need to, keep my head on a swivel, so to speak?
Oh, and I think also like the repetition of people, you can only lie for so long, right? So if somebody sees you ongoing over and over and over again, creating content, making videos, getting people to get to know who you are, what you value, eventually, if you are making this up, people will see through your BS, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to have ongoing information, like what your values are. Like, why would you do this if you didn't believe in it? Not once, because some people have outliers. Like, I've met some attorneys. I remember one time, this one attorney, I went to an event, and he was like, "Oh, I don't get nothing from this garbage." It was like a charity event. He was pissed off. He was there for like an hour. He's like, "Oh, this is a waste of my time, this and that." But if your reason to be there is to help the community, why are you complaining?
Yeah.
Right? So he wanted a direct result from his effort of being there for a little bit of time. That's not a good character of that person. But eventually, with time, with repetition, and that's why we do events, we do charities, we do a lot of other stuff, because that's who I am. If I wasn't into that, I wouldn't do that. I would just do something different, right? Doesn't make me a bad person. It's just you reveal who you are with repetition.
Yep. Through your actions on a daily
Through your
basis.
actions.
I agree with that 100%. I'm a member of this group. It's called 13 Ugly Men. We do a lot of, parties. Our theme is parties with a purpose. And I remember when I was going through kind of the process of becoming a member, there's a board that interviews you. And when you go through that interview, ultimately what they want to make sure is exactly that. You're not getting into the organization because you want publicity.
Of course.
You're getting into the organization because you're going to make a difference. Like, they want to know, what are you going to do? What are you going to bring to the table to help us raise more money for the charities that we represent? So I agree with that 100%. If you're in it for a one shot, grab as much as you can, you make it something out of it, but it's not going to be
Short term.
It's going to be short-term success.
Yeah, and that happens. I see that all the time. I prefer making a little bit less money on this deal but making money forever than hitting somebody really hard on a deal and then losing that person's trust and feel like they got scammed. That's a horrible thing. It has to be a win-win for everybody. Particularly, it has to be a win for the client.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Because if the client feels like they're losing, then damn, you lost.
Yeah. Well,
right?
I think the proof of the pudding, right? Because I see your post, and a lot of the clients you get are referrals from other clients.
They are.
Right. And I can say the same for us we get a lot of referrals from our clients. I had a lady call me the other day who was, complaining that she had a fall and she had hurt her hip, and it was her grandson who had seen me like 3 years ago.
Wow.
And he said, if you see anybody else, you're crazy, Grandma. This is the guy who took care of me. He got me back to what I was before my crash. You need to go see him. So those are the type of things that really resonate with me, is that we're getting the message across and we're doing a good job.
Yeah, we definitely get a lot of referrals from other clients. I remember one time I helped some lady I remember I sat down with her and I shared a story with her. It was at a community event, a Tanya Lewis event. It was a back to school event. And, when I go to these events, I don't think I'm going to get clients right away. I really don't. In fact, I have no idea when I'm going to get clients, if I ever do. I mean, I'm hoping I get clients at some point in my life, right? But that's not my intention when I first go in. And I remember that lady called me. It was like 4 years later. And I said, how'd you hear about me? She's like, oh, I talked to you once at a Tanya Lewis event. I said, we probably talked to a lot of people at the Tanya Lewis event. What made you want to call me? Well, because you shared a story with me. It really resonated deep with me of my family. And I was like, wow, to think the impact that makes. Like, sometimes we don't realize the impact of our words when we're talking to people, when we're sharing our ideas, we're sharing our stories. It can influence and impact somebody, and we may not even realize it. But those real conversations, I feel, when you're sharing yourself, not when you're trying to do sales pitch, like, oh, I'm the best thing since sliced bread, right?
Right.
Nobody really is like, okay, sure, cool story, bro. But it's when you're being genuine about who you are, those are things that people remember.
Yeah, I would say that actually resonates something with what I learned in chiropractic school. The founder or the developer of chiropractic was a guy by the name of V.J. Palmer. And I actually have that exact quote on my wall. It says, you never realize how far reaching something you say or do today will affect the lives of someone tomorrow. That exact quote was on my wall for probably the first 25 years of my career.
That's wild.
Yep.
We're talking about social media here a little bit, social media and kind of, I think it's more of an amplification of who we are, if we use it properly. What have you found? Because also, making people laugh works really well, entertaining, because people want to be entertained. Because, people are sitting there in the toilets at, 7 in the morning, do the scroll. And what can you get in to stop scrolling?
Yeah.
Right? How can you grab their attention? For us, my slogan has always been, had a bad day. Because people have a bad day.
Yeah.
Right. And it just came out of a conversation of me just joking around one day before I was even an attorney. Is like I would see like a car, like a meme of a car flying in the air. I'm like, that was a bad day. Like it came out of a joke.
Right.
And then from there, I'm like, this is my slogan. Like, so everything is branded, had a bad day. And when I first started, I did like mini clips of like cars, of crazy accidents, nothing graphic, just something people laugh. And that would get people to stop the doom scroll, right?
Right.
And then I was like, oh, that's pretty funny to watch the video, to comment. And I love when they comment, either they agree with me or they don't agree with me. It doesn't make a difference. I used to get mad when they didn't agree with me because your ego, right? But now I'm like, fire away.
Right. It opens up the conversation. I think I remember one of those videos. You had a car that was almost like straight up in the air.
Yeah.
In between two other cars. I don't know how the heck that happened.
And people stop. Yeah. So like, I think that sometimes engagement, everything I say doesn't mean people are going to agree with me, right? There's videos that I have made, and because I'm an attorney, and I don't know if you get this as a doctor, you may get it as a chiropractic doctor. As an attorney, I get people that love me, and not even get to know who I am, just love me because I'm helping people, and other people, oh, you're the worst thing since you're the scum of the earth, you're bottom feeder, you're this, because I'm an attorney.
Right.
So I remember when I sometimes post things, people would just go off, especially TikTok. I don't know, people have no feelings in TikToks.
Yeah.
Off in the comments. And I used to get kind of angry about it. Now I just fire back and talk garbage in a nice way. Aim in the shade. So I'm like, yeah, I don't have my shoes, I can't run that fast in my shoes. It's hard to run in my dress shoes. I'll say stupid stuff like that, right?
Right.
But what I want is engagement, and that engagement boosts me up to the top. So like sometimes controversial videos, funny videos, educational videos. You kind of have to have a mix, I feel.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I try to stick with things at least resonate with, certainly my character.
Of course.
I want to be, comfortable saying that stuff. I mean, I got grandkids. My grandkids love my TikTok videos.
Yeah, they're fun.
I go over there and they'll scroll through. Occasionally I do have to tap the slide through because there may be one or two where there's a curse word in there. But
got it.
But ultimately it still has to resonate with who you are as a person, as a character. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I like to do stuff with dancing because, I have some background with dance.
Yeah.
So a lot of the singing stuff I like too, some crazy things that way. But
Well, because it's going back to who you are,
Correct.
right? I'm not a funny dude. I'm in conversation. I could have little, responses here and there. But if I'm trying to be there like a comedian up there, I would fail horribly. If I try to be a singer, I would fail horribly. So what I'm into is I'm into like self-help. I'm into fitness. I'm into, improving your life. So a lot of my content is on those subjects
That's good.
because it's what I'm into. Of course, I do some legal stuff. Of course, I'm an attorney, but it's who I am, right? Some other people, they have a different type of vibe,
Right.
which is fine.
No, I think you can't be everything to everybody, right?
Not at all.
You've got to be who you are, and then that's going to attract the people that are meant to be in your circle, right? That are meant to come to you for help, right? I feel sad that you have to deal with some of those negative comments.
Yeah.
I think it's more a professional thing, because for years people would make those type of jokes, about about attorneys, right? But
Yeah, I get it.
fortunately for myself, I don't have to deal with that because I think mainly just being the thing of healthcare. The one thing I might get is because I'm a chiropractor, you'll get a few people who necessarily don't believe in what we do.
Well, they say crack your back, they think you're going to paralyze somebody.
Correct.
It's the craziest thing ever.
So, and that's one of the nice things about the environment that I actually get to practice in, because my office isn't just me as a chiropractor. I've got 2 surgeons that are part of my group. I have a doctor who does interventional pain management. Actually, this last Friday, I spent all day in the surgery center watching my orthopedic spine surgeon do surgery on 2 people, ACDF.
Wow.
It was great. It was so educational watching him. Certainly, we were talking.
Anterior disc replacement. It's AC. It's anterior cervical disc replacement. And if you guys are curious, so they take out your disc and they pull it out and they put another one. It's a big surgery.
Yep. And it's crazy because the technology has changed so much.
Yes.
And so like I was talking with him, I was talking with the rep who sells all the devices. I mean, he has this one tool that was like $20,000, only made in Switzerland, and they don't bargain on the price of that instrument. And it's literally to help distract the spine so that when they're placing the implants between the cervical vertebrae, that they actually are getting a release of the facet joints, which is where a lot of the pain comes from. But the bottom line is I get to be in an environment where I'm multidisciplinary. So I'm learning every day from doctors who are double board certified. Helps me in my practice, my exams, how we treat patients, what we do, what we don't do. It's a big part of our practice.
That's interesting because you're on the medical side. It's a big part of your practice. In my business, I'm huge into that too because I have to understand what's going on with the case and with the doctors and the pain and what they're going through. So I'm very familiar with facet injections. I'm very familiar with the RFAs, radiofrequency ablation, where they burn the nerves. I'm very familiar on the recovery times because I have to continue to educate myself on the procedures, talk to doctors, talk to neuros, talk to orthopedic doctors, surgeons. And, a lot of, and I know this is not we can talk about that forever, but like a lot of times when we go to trial, the insurance adjusters will be like, oh, there's no herniations or minimal herniation or desiccation. Like, it's like a herniation that's already it's old, like it's not current for the accident. Well, the person still has pain. So there's pain in the facet joints. Well, the facet joint pain doesn't come up on MRIs. So an insurance adjuster will say, well, there's no injury. I think they're fake. They won't say that we're faking it, but they're kind of alluding to it. But, but that's why you guys do epidural steroid injections, facet injections. And if it alleviates the pain at that moment, at that exact area, and then it comes back 2 weeks later, that's exactly the place they do surgery on. But these are things that are not taught. You don't learn in law school.
So you're not learning that in law school.
Not even close.
You have to go out of your realm, so to speak, to learn that, right?
A lot. But I think that to your point earlier on, what makes you stretch as an individual is getting out of your comfort zone. Because if you feel that I'm a lawyer, I'm just going to argue points. Well, how you can argue a point? You have no idea what you're talking about, right? Sometimes your ego gets in the way. You need to stretch out. You need to learn these things. I mean, I've learned so many things. I'll give you a quick example. Like I had a case and we settled it. And it was a good amount. The lady kept complaining about her calf pain. She had calf pain. She didn't see a orthopedic doctor for her knee 2 years later. Clearly, the defense is like, well, she didn't complain about her knee for 2 years. What are you talking about? I do a little bit of research, come to find out a indication of calf pain radiates from the back of the calf. It puts pressure on the knee. And then therefore, she had no way of knowing about her knee issue because the pain was radiating through her calf. And then we were able to tie that together with one of their defense doctors, which made it even better, right? So and then we ended up settling for a good amount. But at first they were offering like nothing, like a couple $1,000s, like have a nice day. She had knee surgery, right? But it goes back to stretching yourself, to improving yourself to get better, right? So in anything you do for that matter.
Sounds like that was a pretty good bit of legal work on your part,
Eh,
and understanding the medical side of it, certainly was a big part of that as well. That's good.
I think that more than anything, and people get confused sometimes with the legal side, is I think that I have to understand the medical and the interpersonal issues with that person, how it's affected that person's life, their family, what they went through. That way I can better tell the story. In the medical, and the legal side only happens when you're, honestly, it only happens really when you're in trial on motions. Like almost everything's fact driven.
Really?
Typically. Now, of course, there's rules of evidence, what can come in, what can come in, but if it's relevant, it can come in. But what I'm saying is that the medical side in my business carries more weight than even the legal side in my business because I do personal injury.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the reason why I like to surround myself with other experts, even people who have, they actually see these injuries that you're talking about under a microscope. They're actually dealing with it right there. A lot of times in a surgery center or in a procedure room, doing these injections or RFAs. So it's been, for me, it's been a great experience in helping expand myself and my ability to practice. So I'm glad to see that how you use it and how you take advantage of it. That's great.
Well, but even the engineering side of it, because like forces on a car, forces on a body, depends on the angles.
Yeah.
Right? Like a car can hit you at 20 miles an hour, but depends on the angle, depends on how your neck is turned, depending on how much force is, foot-pounds of pressure on your neck. A lot of times they're like, oh, it's a 15-mile-an-hour car accident. But after you put in the weight of the car, weight of the person, it might be like, 30,000 pounds of pressure that went through your body. That's significant.
And ultimately, it's not just the spine. You talked about the knee. I see a lot of shoulder type injuries.
There is a lot.
Think about a person's got one hand on the wheel. And a lot of people drive like that, right?
I do.
And you get hit in a certain way and your arm jerks this way. What happens to the rotator cuff? What happens to the labrum? All those things are things you have to keep in mind. And so, ultimately, we have to make sure we're up to speed on how to evaluate those types of injuries as well.
And medicine's always changing.
Yeah. Oh, constantly.
Yeah, it's always changing. Like you said, like the ACDF. It used to be it's still a big procedure, but it used to be you could see more cuts in the neck. Now it's it's better. Like it's gone leaps and bounds. Honestly,
I had an ACDF in 2022. The implants I had were basically essentially plastic. My doctor, in the surgery he did, they're all soft titanium implants.
Look at that.
So because they found that, number one, they adhere better. Number two, water is a big factor when it comes to the healing of these and the hardening of these fusions. And they found that with the plastic, it's water resistant. Whereas with the titanium, it actually uses the water and it helps with
more like your natural body.
Yeah. So little things like that. We used to be like when I had my ACDF, it was 6 weeks in a collar. Now they're basically 2 weeks in a collar.
That's amazing.
Because
surgery.
Because all of the devices now, they fuse much quicker. So it's a lot of changes.
It is. It is, man. I always enjoy talking to you about this stuff, and like you're a man of many talents. I think that besides just being a chiropractic doctor, book writer, salsa dancer, reggaeton writer, having grandkids. At a young age, you said 55.
Yeah, 55 now.
You look great for 55, man. Ever since I've known you, you've been high energy.
And thankfully, my grandkids don't call me grandpa; they call me Doc. So
Doc,
that makes it even better.
That's hilarious, Doc. Hey, Dr. AJ, thank you for your time today, bro.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.